It's OU Texas week, and we have to talk about it. But before we do that, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know that you guys are watching. Drop your score predictions down in the comments below. Okay, so Oklahoma this season, I guess you could say over the past two games, have been struggling, and it's not something that Oklahoma fans are necessarily used to. However, Texas is the game where we can turn it around, save a season, and still potentially get to the Big 12 championship. We saw something similar to this situation happen in 2020, and you have to wonder if the team can put it together, if they can put it together for the rest of the season after this game. And so let's go ahead and break down just what are some of those keys for the Oklahoma Sooners to potentially go in there and get a win on Saturday. But then we'll kind of look forward to what we think we should see from Brent Venables and this team going past the Texas game. So in a game that has primarily been dominated by Oklahoma over the past 10 years, winning 3 of the last 4 matchups, both teams are coming into this game 3-2, but one team needs this win more than the other. Texas is 1-1 in conference play, and OU is 0-2. So for OU to have a chance to play in the Big 12 championship game, they have to come out, start strong this week, but then finish strong throughout the season like they did in 2020. So how can they do it? Well, let's go ahead and let's get started on the offense and look at that. The first thing is you got to get the passing game going with those explosive plays through the air, particularly to Marvin Mims. You have to get Marvin Mims the ball early, and you have to get him engaged. You've got to make the Texas secondary or back 7 be honest. You have to make them respect the passing game regardless at who is at quarterback. Second point. Since 2010, OU has outgained Texas by 597 rushing yards. In the past 3 meetings, Oklahoma has outgained Texas by 454. So the big thing here is you have to establish a running game early, and you've primarily got to do that with your 2 best backs this season in Eric Gray and Javonte Barnes. Get them the ball early and let them do their thing. Now, I'm not sure if Marcus Major is going to be healthy and able to play in this game. If he is, you're definitely going to see Marcus Major take some of those snaps. But Javonte Barnes and Eric Gray have definitely showed you that they can be a 1 and 2 duo together. And I would suspect that you would see a little bit of Sawchuk as well in this game, as we have heard a lot about his speed this offseason, and that's something that you're going to want against this Texas team. All right, lastly on the offense, this one's probably the most obvious, but the offensive line has to play well, and they have to clean up their game, right? They have to block well in all aspects of the game, regardless whether DG or whoever is in the backfield passing the ball, right? You've got to be able to give them time. You've got to be able to make room for those backs, but you can't afford to kill yourself with those needless false start penalties that we've seen so often from this offensive line this season. But that's kind of weird because they give you one extreme to the next. We saw in that Nebraska game, they didn't have a single false start penalty. But then you've seen the previous 2 games before that, they have multiples. And you see it after, they have multiple false starts. The offensive line has seemed to start playing a little better, but I would like to see them play another clean game, especially against a Texas defensive line that is out there to prove something. All right, so let's get to the defense. So with the defense, I would argue that this is one of the most crucial parts for this team on Saturday, as multiple times in this rivalry over the past several years, key plays have come from OU at getting to the quarterback and applying pressure. So I'm specifically talking towards the defensive line here. In the past 5 years, you have created 23 sacks, averaging about 4.6 of those a game. The one game that you lost in the past 5 years to the University of Texas, you only got 1 sack. That was a 3-point game. You turned around in the Big 12 championship and got 3 sacks and won that game by, I think it was 11 or 12 points. The sacks are going to be crucial in this game. Applying pressure to Quinn Ewers, especially since this is going to be his first game back from an injury. You would expect Quinn Ewers to maybe be a little bit jittery and getting the ball out a little bit quicker than he would maybe like to if you apply that pressure or maybe get to him a couple times and connect with him. But there is one guy that a lot of people are pretty disappointed with so far this season on the line, and that is Ethan Downs. Now, although some of that might be valid, as he's only had 11 total tackles this season and 2.5 sacks, this could be the game that turns it around for him. And I really want to see Ethan Downs turn it around. This is the game where legends are born, and Ethan Downs has the capability and the talent to cement himself in this rivalry. He is really aggressive and explosive off the line, and this is someone that I expect to go out there and have a great game for the Sooners on Saturday. This is a guy that has said it multiple times. He's came on the podcast and said it, but he wants to be a leader, and you expect him to go out there and help get the defensive line together and be ready to play. Ethan Downs has played in this rivalry before. So with new guys on that defensive line like Jeffrey Johnson or Jonah Laululu, or if maybe even Stripling or R. Mason Thomas are ready to go, you would see Ethan Downs potentially being a leader there and getting those guys ready to attack I guess you could say it's in the middle, but Texas has got a lot of young guys on that offensive line. They also have a couple of experienced guys. So I would say you could take advantage of a pretty mediocre offensive line for the Texas University. Additionally, another guy on that defensive line that you would like to see more production out of is Reggie Grimes, right? He had a great start to the season and has 4 sacks, but he really hasn't done anything since then. So you would really like to see him use this game to get going again and then continue to build off that. Because if Ethan Downs and Reggie Grimes continue to bring the pressure and continue to bring the production that we expect them to, this defensive line for Oklahoma is going to be pretty good. And I think this defensive line for Oklahoma, although the defense hasn't played well, actually has been pretty good all season, and they have a lot of talent there. I guess the question is, are we going to move out of a 3-man front to maybe a 4 or a 5-man front to try to apply a little bit more pressure and maybe show them a little bit more blitz packages? But we'll see what Brent Venables has got in store this weekend. All right. So for the second thing for the defense, you want to see the back 7. How are they going to react this season? So last season, you saw Xavier Worthy completely torch this secondary with 9 receptions, 261 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Specifically, you remember that first play of the game, 75-yard touchdown by Xavier Worthy. It was, by the way, it was a great block on Bowman. Jaden Davis just could not get that tackle. This year, you're going to have your hands full with not only Xavier Worthy, but you're going to have Whittington, Agiah Hall, Jatavion Sanders. You're going to have to play better. You're going to have to disguise those coverages, and you're going to have to make the tackles the first time. You would really hope to see guys like Jaden Davis, Key Lawrence, and potentially Woody Washington really step up and make stops. You want to see them make their presence known in this game. And this is all assuming that Billy Bowman is still out and will not be able to start or play for the Sooners. So the last thing and the last key that you could say for Oklahoma is potentially the most obvious of any of the keys that I've given you, whether it's on offense or defense. They've got to be better at tackling this game. You have to make your tackles the first time. Bijan Robinson is great at making people miss on those tackles. So do not miss on your tackles. Make it the first time. All right. So let's just say Oklahoma goes out there, they get the win. What is something that you're looking forward to, assuming that the team wins, right? Well, you would want to see potentially Brent Venables needing to assume play calling responsibility on defense. I get it. He loves Ted Roof, but the experiment is not working. There is a reason why this guy is already on his 6th job in 6 years. Let him work with the linebackers. but Brent needs to assume the play calling. Secondly, you got to play some of those talented freshmen that we have and get them experience, right? We're already at 2 losses. We're not going to a national championship. Go ahead and put some of those freshmen in there. Let them get experience real time so that next season you have yourself an experienced team, especially with a lot of elite true freshmen coming in. You don't want to waste those years with Jackson Arnold and potentially maybe even Dylan Gabriel. You don't want to waste those years. You saw guys like Grayson Halton last week. He looked great. Robert Spears-Jennings came late in that game, and he looked good. We've heard so much about Sawchuk, about his speed, how the coaches rave about him, how they're excited about him. Okay, show us that excitement. Put him in the game. Let us see that speed. Let us see him take over on the offensive side of the ball. What about Jaden Gibson? We need to see him in the game more. Right? Because here's what's going to happen. If you've got Weiss and Mims out there with Willis or Stoops, and then you've got Jaden Gibson out there, they aren't going to be able to put double coverage on all those guys. And if Gibson's got one-on-one coverage out there, you can bet that he's got a really solid chance to go up there and grab those balls and win a lot of those matchups because he is going to tower over some of those defenders. So you guys have heard me on the Locked On Longhorns podcast. I believe that will be coming out on Friday. I'm currently recording this on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. But I'm going to say it again here. If Oklahoma has Dylan Gabriel, they win this game. I'll give you a score prediction, 48-45, right? If Dylan Gabriel plays in this game. If Dylan Gabriel doesn't play in this game, honestly, I'm not sure where this goes. In fact, I think Texas has the upper advantage there, especially with Quinn Ewers playing, and I think Texas will pull it out. The question is, how will the defense play? We'll just flip-flop that score to 48-45 in Texas's favor. We're not going to make it too complicated, but go ahead, jump in the comments below. Let me know what your guys' score predictions are for the OU-Texas game, and who is a player for Oklahoma that you think could really show out in this game and potentially cement himself into Red River rivalry history.